Would you really want a relationship or a long-term marriage to be easy, easy, easy? That is totally unrealistic because, let's face it, life is not a fairy tale. So we've got 3 kids. One of them is an officer in the Army.
She's married.
And she's newly married. And we have a 23-year-old son and a 16-year-old son. Watching these kids navigate relationships and their future and marriage and whatever they choose to do with the relationships in their lives, it's interesting how much of an impact it has, the right choice in a partner, and the impact that's going to have on the rest of their lives, the impact it's had on my life, on Thom's life, on everyone. And, there's a study that was done 85 years ago in Harvard saying it's the single most important thing that you do is to choose a good partner, and what it will do to your success or failure for the rest of your life cannot be overstated.
This is where it gets really complicated, even here at our house. How do you pick a great partner? There have been great examples and some poor examples, probably more poor examples in history of people marrying the wrong people or hanging out with the wrong people. A guy named G. Gordon Liddy, who was Nixon's fall guy, who went to jail for Nixon, got to know his son, who was also in the SEAL teams, and he also had a son who was a Marine, and conversationally got to know him. And he had mentioned the topic of how you pick a spouse, and he said, first and foremost, you pick a spouse that has genetic capacity that you would like to pass on to the kids. Mm-hmm. You look at her and go, I want my kids to look and act like her. And she should look at the man and go, holy shit, I would like my offspring to have those genetic predispositions.
And absolutely, I'm going to interrupt you here for a moment. When Thom and I first started dating, I felt sort of like a horse that was being examined for running races or something. I was like waiting for him to pull up my lip and check out my teeth because he was asking all sorts of questions about my family lineage, our propensity for certain kind of diseases and those sort of things. And in all transparency, I'm eyeing him up at the same exact time. While I might not be asking those sort of questions, I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, I want my children to look like that. I want the boys that I raise to be big and sturdy and strong like him. He can protect me and my offspring. It's a big part of the choice that I made when choosing him.
Natural selection has worked for billions of years.
Y'all can try to fight it, and it's there. It's like fighting a stream of water. It's going to find a way, one way or another, to make the path.
Yeah, like you could literally make a list of everything that's important for the woman or the man to have, from skin texture to size of this, that, and the other, how they walk, when they wake up, what they talk about, all that stuff. And on that list, great people don't mark things off the list. Mm-hmm. If you want your wife to be 5'10", make her be 5'10".
Choose someone who's 5'10".
5'10". There's like 6 women on the world that are 5'10". But if you have something that's important to you, don't drop it.
Don't drop it. Don't sell out. Wait for what you really want.
Wait for what you want.
Find what you want. And more importantly, make yourself the woman who's going to attract the kind of man that you want. More than seeking that dude, spend all your time focusing on being the woman who's going to attract a man like that.
And the second on his list was, can she deal with you struggling? Can the woman deal with the man struggling, or does the woman have to have an easy life for her to exist at home? And that's a gray area. So literally when you get married, everybody knows this, there's going to be struggle. What happens when people start to struggle? Do they fall apart? So analyze your future spouse by giving before you commit. Let's go through something difficult
with some struggles
together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to an environment that maybe you don't like physical environment. Not that women don't like physical, but go somewhere where you're tired and you're exhausted and see how they interact with you. Vet them, literally. And you're hiring your future.
The same thing for a woman seeking a man. You're really going to need to see how he steps up in times of difficulty, in times of threat, in times of question, in times of uncertainty. You don't want to be with somebody who's going to fall apart when it hits the fan. That's nobody who's going to protect you and your children. Run.
What was that saying that about women? See how he interacts with kids.
Yeah. See how he treats. Yeah.
Does he browbeat kids? Does he expect too much of them? There's this weird dynamic of take your future husband to a place where kids are running a freaking muck and see how he interacts with that, because that's how he's going to be.
As a dad, yeah.
He's going to be, push it off on mom. Yep. I'm not going to play, which is a weird thing to do, but literally vet your future spouse.
You know, it's really interesting. Two of the historical women that I love their stories. The first was a woman who was married to Winston Churchill, and there's an anecdote about her walking through London with Winston, and she saw somebody, and she walked away from him for a couple moments to speak with this man who happened to be a street sweeper. And when Winston and his wife came back together, he asked her, who was that? And she said, oh, it was an old boyfriend. And he laughed and said, see, you could have been married to the street sweeper. And she went, oh, no. He could have been prime minister. That is the impact that the right person has on your future. I also love the marriage, the love story, the connection between Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, and the letters that they wrote to one another, and how protective she was of him during his time in the White House. Like, she was his vice president. No way around it. She was the one who was running the show alongside him. And that is the kind of person, of quality that you really want to find in a mate, somebody you're going to commit to, that they are going to be with you no matter what it is that you're up to together. We do it together or we don't do it at all. That's what Thom and I say. And sometimes it means we're doing really shitty things, because let's face it, life is not a fairy tale. And nor would you really want a relationship or a long-term marriage to be easy. That is totally unrealistic. Nobody wants that. I don't care what anybody says. But when you fight, that you fight towards each other and not away from each other.
Yeah, it seems much easier for men to have a submissive wife. It seems easy, y'all. It seems easy until you catastrophically get to the point where you cannot move forward without a strong person, and it's not there. If you think being submissive works, send your hard-earned money to me. I'll make your money work for me, because you will catastrophically not be a great woman. Stop being submissive.
Well, I want to take exception with that, which may be shocking to a lot of people. And I'm not saying that, biblically, where it says, wives submit to your husbands, it's not a one-way street. The other side of that equation is that your husbands are called to love their wives the way Christ loved the church. So it is not an all or nothing proposition here. The other piece of it is, you can be a submissive wife when needed, and you can assert yourself equally when it's time. And I'm not saying, oh, go and be submissive. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying a woman shouldn't try to be the head of the household. The man is the head of the household.
The actual, either the Hebrew or the translation for submissive doesn't mean the same thing to them that it did to us. Submissive means where he goes, I go. All in. That's how that was supposed to mean. That's me. So both people are already always committed to what the other person's doing all the time. That's not submissive. Submissive, how we look at it, is lower my
Yeah.
My output.
Turn your eyes down and do what you're told.
If
That's not what
he
we're
wants to
talking
browbeat
about.
me, put my hand down, take it, submit to somebody doing stupid shit to you. That's not the right thing to do.
100%. Not the right thing.
Not the right thing. If you do that, you're literally buying oceanfront property in Arizona.
Well, I think
men
men
sold
really,
the wrong thing.
And men want a woman who knows her place and what she wants, who's going to be willing to let him be a leader and also assert herself when it's time. A lot of times women don't assert themselves when they need to, which harbors resentment.
Yeah, it causes big issues.
Tremendous amount of resentment, and that blows things up too. So these are the difficult conversations that really change people's lives. Are you able to have a conversation? And I mean, in this instance, we're talking about a husband and a wife or a significant other, but the same thing exists in relationships with anybody in your life who truly matters to you.
How do you pick somebody that you're going to continually evolve commitments over time? Literally, that's what a marriage is. Over time, I'm not committed to Stacy for 100 years. I'm committed 100% of my effort to one more day. One more day. I'll keep committing to one more day. It's not in perpetuity, no matter how bullshit life becomes. We reset often and recommit. Reset,
all the time.
Recommit. Reset, recommit.
Well,
reset,
and the magic in that conversation too is letting go of the past. And people don't do that. But if you drag your past into this moment, if you drag your past into the moment you're sharing, whether it's easy or difficult, this moment is gone. You're still living in the past. And there's no way that you can build a future with somebody if you continue to bring up the past. Nothing is more destructive than watching couples trying to work things out, saying, but remember when you did A, B, and C? Yep. But what about what you did? Yep. Like, who cares? Do you want your relationship to work? Do you want to be strong, or do you want to place blame? It's really horrible to watch good people do destructive things. And those destructive things, back to, one of the other points that we were making, it's not just you that it's destructive to. We destroy everything around us when we are, refuse to remain committed to our word. It affects everybody. It does not happen in a vacuum.
Watch how much an impact you have on your kids when you as a couple reset and recommit. No matter how screwed up your kids were on Monday, if you reset your relationship with your spouse on Tuesday, your kids change on Tuesday.
They do. Yep.
They do.
We can tell you, after 18 years of being married, deployments, moves, career changes, transitioning from military to civilian life. I feel like there are times where we're continually resetting. And each time that we are able to get off of whatever our issues are and connect and be one with one another, it immediately shows up in a boost in performance of all of our kids.
The longer we lag on resetting and recommitting, the more
it hurts
it negatively impacts the kids.
Yep, and you have to own that as parents and as adults. The choices that you make in your relationships, they affect your kids.
That not that it's probably a sidebar, but most parents do not want to own the conversation called "My kids' struggles are mine."
Yeah, it's
Whatever
interesting.
struggle you're having as an adult, you're pushing that struggle into an unfamiliar space on your kids.
It reminds me of that show, and I don't know if y'all have seen it, the Super Nanny, where this woman will be brought in to help these parents who had emailed into the show and told them how horrible their kids are and how they can't get any control over them. And every single time without fail, it wasn't the kids, it's the parents. It's always the parents. It's not up to us. It's not up to them to do and be and grow into the right thing. It's up to us to mold and shape and marshal their efforts to get the results that they want.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So the long and the long of it is be very cautious who you choose for a partner. It will change your life and your children's lives as well.
Thank y'all.
Thanks for listening.